Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm just going to give it another minute or two. There was a bunch of people that had signed up. I just want to make sure everyone has a chance to log in. So we're probably going to get started around 1:04, which is in 2 minutes. So thank you for the patience. We'll get started real soon. Thank you. All right. Thanks for being patient, everybody. We're going to get started now. My name is Bill Evans. I'm a senior product specialist with Awareness Technologies. We're going to walk through the interface together and just make sure you kind of see the basics of how to navigate it, how to get to some of the data that might be useful, and make sure that you guys get the most out of the licenses that you have. And if you're a prospective customer, obviously see how it works and how you might be able to use it. If you have any questions, I would love for you guys to enter them into the interface itself. The GoToWebinar has an interface, and there's a questions tab. You can just type it in, and then at the end, I will go through and read all the questions and run through them together. All right, great. Well, let's get started. So as you can see here, the point of this interface is to allow you to, see what your employees are doing, what recorded data is being captured. You could build reports, you can view the data, schedule exports to come to you on a regular basis, search for things, all of those things. So this is what it looks like when you first log in. This is a kind of a working left to right layout. So the idea is you start here and you kind of move over. So this first view is a chart view. It's basically a top-down view of what we're looking at here. There's basically, you can see these different graphs. There are many that you can choose from. You can just choose to add or edit different ones. Here are the lists that you have to choose from. I think there's over 50 of them. And then you just choose which ones are being shown. And the cool thing about these is that they're all interactive, so you can hover over them, and they'll actually show you who makes up the part of each of these graphs. Initially, it's going to be everybody that it's showing, but you can always narrow down to view just one group of people, just one user, just one computer. Oops, sorry. And then, of course, also a specific date set, which you can change by just clicking on the calendar itself. All right, moving over to the personnel view. This is basically a view of all of your active users. Basically, what this will tell you is who's working, how active have they been that day, is there anything that they're doing that I need to know about, whether it's unproductive events or number of alerts that they've had. You can view their most recent screenshots. You can view when they've been at their computer throughout the day. And so for unproductive events, you can see that there's this, an ability to turn a program or website green or red. So as you run through this, this is this kind of builds some intelligence into the software, but you're going to choose whether or not a program is work-related or unproductive. And so if it's unproductive, it's going to get the red mark. If it's productive, it's going to get the green mark, and so on. If it's gray and undefined, that's what that gray mark is, or you can see here, there's some things that it really is neither work nor time wasting. So anyway, you can ultimately sort any of these columns, number of unproductive events, or number of alerts. So I can actually click into somebody's day by just clicking on their name, and it's going to take me into a page that shows, first of all, just some graphs that represent, again, any number of overview things for that specific person, where they've been going on the web. And then below is an activity log, basically all of their recorded activity in chronological order. So you can always just scroll through this, and again, this is another place where you can choose whether or not things should be deemed productive or unproductive. Shows activity, shows how much active time, and so on. If I wanted to look at that person's screenshots, I could come over, view their continuous screenshots, and it's going to show them to me basically in a slideshow. So yeah, so that's the idea there. Again, you can always change the date that you're looking at. Currently, it's going to be usually it's the current date, and then you can basically sort this out by some different filters or look at a different user if you wanted to. But yeah, that's the idea here. Moving over from there is the data view, basically a complete overview of all of the captured data. Initially this is going to be websites, or the first thing that you'll see here is websites that were captured. Again, you can change what type of data you're looking at. So if you wanted to look at something like, say, emails or IMs or keystrokes, you could choose that. But let's start with websites. Again, this is for everybody to start out, but you could change that to just a group or just a user, and then you choose a date range as well. So initially, you'll see all the domains here. Here's all the websites that were visited and the number of times they were visited between those dates. And then here are your individual entries. I think initially this is sorted by chronologically or in times that they happened, but you could sort them by active time if you wanted to. And active time is actually interacting with the website itself. So, mouse clicks, scrolling, typing, stuff like that. If you click on the entry, it'll give you some details, including a link to get there. For websites, there's not a ton of extra information there, but just know that you can also group this by logon as opposed to domain. And if you wanted to just look at one person's web activity, you could do that. Here's Stanley's, and still sorted by active time, as you can see here, top down. So if I wanted to look at something like emails, and I wanted to group this by type of email as opposed to date, and say I wanted to look at all of the emails, not so much Outlook, but Outlook.com, which is their web version, their OWA version of their web access. So this is the web mails that they're sending. I might want to know what they're doing there. I click on the entry. It's actually going to show me the entire details of the email. So it shows who is it from, who's it to, subject, recipient, date, and then the content of the email. Did it contain an alert word? I could sort by emails that contain an alert word. So you get the idea. Anyway, this is all the captured data. Obviously, there's a lot of information there. This would be where you'd kind of dig in and say, like, hey, what this is where I'm going to get the raw information and be able to prove that something might have happened, whereas there's other spots that I'll show you that kind of draw this information to the surface, for you. So yes, moving on, the report center. So There are many different reports that you can build out. The first thing that this is going to open up is called the exception log. And what this is basically an initial look at the most recent notifications and alerts that have happened. What those can consist of are alert words, website categories that you choose. So if somebody goes to, say, a sports website or a recruiting website, and you want to know about it, you can have that be triggered as well. And then there's also a version or a type of notification called a behavioral notification, where you're choosing parameters. And so you're saying, hey, anytime somebody sends more than 3 webmails, I want to know about it. Or if anybody sends more than 1 or 0, at least one or more webmails with an attachment, I want to know about it. This is where it can notify you of those things as well. The cool thing is that you can actually click on this and it will show you the context where that notification or alert word took place. This is a keystroke. Here's what the keystrokes look like. This was a message or messaging program. Here's the conversation. So yeah, so that's the exception log. Again, it's just a quick place to come to say, hey, what's happened most recently that I might care about, that might be really important to know about. Of course, this can be exported if you want to, or you can have that even scheduled to export to you on a regular basis if you wanted to. Moving over to reports and exports. So, there are many different reports that you can build out. You build them, you can always come back and turn them on or off if you needed to. You can edit them, but to add one, you just click the add button. A preset report is basically a report that comes to you via email with one or many of those graphs that we looked at earlier in the chart view. You can choose all of them, you could choose one of them. What type of graph do you want? You name it, so we'll call this one the daily graph report. Then you choose who it's covering. Maybe it's everybody, maybe just one group of people, and you can even go down to the user if you wanted to. How often do you receive it? What type of file? So these are going to be graphs, so obviously we'd want to choose something graphical, so a PDF or a JPEG. Anything that's data heavy, I would always do an Excel spreadsheet. This is where you add your email address. And just know that you can have multiple recipients for any of these reports as well. Click next, finish, and then it would show up. Now, once it's built out, it'll show up here, and once it's sent out, or once it's sent out its first one, it'll show up under recent reports. You can always come down here and not just re-download, but you can also view these reports within the interface itself. So I came in here. If I wanted to come in and view it, well, this one doesn't have data. Let's go back. Let's go back to this one. There you go. So you can see basically just as a top users type of report per user, who's doing the most types of things. Again, there are many different reports you have to choose from. So just going back quickly into reports, just to show you what else is available there. Custom reports, there's a bunch of different ones, obviously, but just to show you what you have, you could do a idle time report, so that ranks all of your people top down by how much idle time they've had. You could do a user or activity report, basically the top 5 for each category. A daily activity log is somebody's day from start to finish. A daily user behavior report basically allows you to see how many times certain things are happening. So how many webmails are people sending, and it stack ranks all of your people, gives you the office average. And what that allows you to do is basically quickly point out who's the anomaly, who stands out from the norm, who might, there might be something going on that you need to know about, that kind of thing. But the same idea, you're choosing what's it covering, who is it going to be covering, how often do you receive the report, what type of file, who's receiving the report, and then you finish it. Exports, same idea. Basically, it's just a little bit more of a data dump. It's for more of an archiving tool. So if you wanted to get a list of every website that was visited by all of your people and send it to you once a week, that's where you'd come to do this. You'd add a detailed export, call it weekly websites. I'd just choose that. If I wanted to, of course, you could do all the data if you wanted to as well. Have it covering everybody, or, again, you can change that if you want. How often do you receive this? I want this weekly. Again, you can always do immediately, and then just choose a date range. I want this as an Excel spreadsheet. I'd add my email address, and then I'd get that every Monday morning when I came into work. It would be there for me. So that's the exporting piece. And the last piece, notifications. Just like I had mentioned before, there are notifications based off of a word. You build out an alert word list, and then it's going to tell you, hey, did somebody type this word? And you can get an email sent to you immediately when they type that word. Website notification, so if somebody visits a certain type of website, and then user behavior, so did somebody, visit more than 5 blocked websites, that type of thing. And just to show you how that works, you could do add, call this one behavioral notification, and basically you're adding settings. So if I want to know if more than 2 blocked websites, I want to know if more than 3 webmails sent per day. We use Outlook. Nobody should be using webmail. Sure, if they have to send a couple, it's fine. But I want to know if somebody's sending more than 3. Why did this person send 20? I'd want to know about that. Fewer than 50 keystrokes. So anyway, those are some examples. Recipients is your email. Who is it covering? How often do you receive it? So that's the user behavior piece. And then agent check-in is basically a way of keeping an eye on all the computers and making sure that they don't go offline. So if they haven't checked in with our server in more than X number of days, you can get an automated email sent to you. Usually it's good to do at least, I'd say, 3 days, only because on the weekends people are rarely going to be working, unless they work every day. If they do, then maybe, you can do a couple days, but otherwise I do 3 or 4 days, and that way, should there be some reason why that computer hasn't checked back into the server and has kind of gone offline, you find out about it much earlier than so if there's a problem, you can kind of identify it quickly and say, okay, we need to figure something out here. Something happened to this computer, and we need to get things back up and running. So it's just a kind of a fail-safe. So that's the report center. And the last piece here is search. Basically just an ability to search all the recorded data for a specific thing. Initially, it's going to want you to choose a category. You can do all data types, but the best way to do it would be, hey, I want to search all. You could do all data types. It depends how many people obviously you have. It's going to be a lot of data if you think about it. So this is one of 850 line items. And I think this test example, again, this is, kind of test data. So it's not a real world scenario. So there might be really much more, but it depends. It depends how many people you have. Regardless, you can always decide what you want to look at. So, hey, did somebody send an email with this word in it? Did somebody visit this website with this word in it? Did somebody, touch a file that's called this? But let's just show you an example of how it works. So if I wanted to look up, anywhere where the word recruiter came in, I can see that Jim looks like in a keystroke in a website typed in recruiter. Let's see what that looks like. Looks like he was typing a probably something in a website, I would assume. But websites, it looks like somebody was on LinkedIn. Looks like Dwight was there trying to communicate with a recruiter. But you get the idea. Basically, this allows you to quickly filter out the data and see, did something happen that I need to know about? So yeah, so it basically allows you to search through that data very quickly. And of course, you can always change the date range or change the users or just look at a group of people to kind of continuously filter down what you're looking at. Okay, so that's the kind of the interface itself. Just know that for how you set some of these things up, under settings, recording and blocking, this is going to be where you're choosing what is and isn't recording. So of course, this is all group specific settings. So if you want everybody to have the same settings, just leave everybody in the unassigned group. If you want to build out groups, you can always do that. And then set their settings, here, settings, recording and blocking. So, maybe for somebody I don't really need to capture keystrokes, or somebody I don't really need to see where they're going on the web, it usually doesn't hurt to have the recording turned on for the most part, just because it's there if you need it, that type of thing. But this would be where you would set what kind of screenshots are running. Are they running continuously? If so, how often? Or are you running smart camera screenshots, which are actually triggered by a specific program or website of which you choose? So you'd say, hey, if they open up Excel, I want to see a screenshot every 10 seconds for 30 minutes. Or if they open up Facebook, I want to see a screenshot every minute for, 3 hours. So that kind of thing. And then active devices basically gives you kind of a layout of what computers you have up and running. What version are they running, and how recently have they checked in with our server? So that's pretty much the bulk of it. Again, I think the goal for today is just to kind of show you how to navigate this interface, explain that the point of revamping how some of this looks and feels is to get you the information that I think is the most potent, most important, most usable, most valuable, getting it to you faster so that you don't have to dig through so much information, and making this tell a story more about each person than about all of this captured data, which can be overwhelming. You don't quite know where to look when you just have this mass of data. So that's just that's kind of the thought process behind why it's built that way. So yeah, so let me just quickly check out the questions here. So somebody asked a good question. Let me just pull it up here. Okay, so somebody asked, let me just read through this. Okay, so I'm sorry, there was a couple things written down. How do you create a group and add or remove a user to or from it? So how do you create groups? Great question, totally relevant. Let me just make sure this is being shared here. So yeah, so to add a group, basically this is your home page. You're going to come over to the personnel group. So think of this as your people. These are all your people. It's like, okay, well, now that they're here, how do I want to arrange them or organize them? As you can see up here, it's kind of hidden by my interface, but right here it says add group. So you just click on add group, enter the group name, call this one sales team B. it will add it. You can see it's been added. Come back to active devices. Sales team B is right here. So this is the device view, or the computers that have licenses running on them. And then if I come over to the user view, I can click on this or the plus button. Now let's see, this is actually select. Okay, sorry. So it's not the edit button is actually for quick edits to their recording functions. It is just the plus button. And basically what it's going to allow you to do is pull up all the categories that have users in them. In this case, for our test drive account, the only category that has users is the unassigned group. So I'd click on that. I'd see my people. I'd say, hey, I know Jim and let's see who else, and Stanley, and Dwight, and Pam are all on the sales team. Phyllis, Andy. I then press move. I say yes. And now I've got my group set up that way. I can then come back, recording and blocking. Choose my specific settings for sales team B. So yeah, so that's how you do that. Pretty straightforward. Let me just see if there was any other questions. Okay, so somebody said, do I need to configure an email address for sending notifications? So the answer is yes, you certainly will, and I'll show you. So let's build one together. So I go back to the home page, report center, notifications. I'm going to add one. So basically, notifications are going to send you an email and say, hey, this happened. So let's do one that's, if somebody types a specific word, let's call this alert word notification. I would add, let's call this one too, okay? Add my email address. I'd say, who is this going to be monitoring on or covering? Maybe just the first two groups of people. Actually, you know what? For our purposes, let's do just the new group that we said. And then how often? Daily or immediately? Immediately means as soon as it happens, it's going to send you an email. It's going to say, hey, here's where this word was typed. And it allows you to take action if you need to. So, yeah, that's basically how you build that. All right, awesome. Well, I didn't see, let's see here. There might be one more. The notification, so somebody asked, does that notification email is that notification email coming from InterGuard, or is it coming from your company's email? It's going to come from InterGuard. Yeah, so you'll always want to make sure if for some reason you're not receiving it, check your junk folder. But I would say that it's very often there isn't a problem. It successfully comes through, and yes, you'll receive an email. If you're finding you're getting too many notifications or too many alerts, you can always dial it back and say, okay, this one's giving me too many false positives. It's not relevant. It's not giving me information I care about. Then you can come back and edit it if you have to. All right, great, guys. Well, thanks for people to ask questions, and thanks everybody else for joining. It was a good turnout, and I hope this was helpful. What I'll tell you is that if you want to walk through any portion of this together, one-on-one, I'm certainly happy to do that and available. Again, my name is Bill Evans. My direct contact info, my phone number is 203-307-2941. And you can always email me at B for my first name, Bill, and then my last name, Evans, EVANS, at awareness-tech.com. So thanks again for joining, and I hope to connect with all you guys again in the near future. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon, guys.